Back to our top story now, and NAB's half-year profit result. After all the briefings and the presentations, I caught up with Chief Executive Cameron Clyne. Cameron Clyne, welcome to Lateline Business.
Thank you.
Well, it's the banking surprise of the week, even a compliment from Brian Johnson, and I gather very much driven by your business clients.
Well, actually, I think the pleasing thing about this result is that all parts of our business contributed. Good market share gains in the personal bank, strong performance from business banking, a little bit of a rebound in the UK. So I think all parts have contributed to this result.
The profit growth on the business side was quite considerable, 7.6% half on half. How will you keep your market share here? Because presumably the other banks must be eyeing this off.
Look, I mean, the reality is competition's been intense around our business market for many, many years. I think what's delivering the market share growth is that we were one of the most active lenders during the GFC, and customers respond to that support. Often when you have a relationship business, it's defined by how you deal with customers in difficult times, and the most consistent feedback we get is that our active support of customers during that time is one of the reasons that we're seeing that business bank market share gain.
Because your rates actually went up for small business, didn't they?
Well, it's obviously some impacts there on different products and mix. So you can't look at it straight as a rate increase as such, but the margin did expand a little.
Now, looking at your breaking up campaign more generally and how it's led to a growing market share in the personal banking market, how have the margins been here, however? Because would a lot of your mortgage business now be white label?
In the sense of coming through the broker channel? Well, some of it certainly is, but there's still very strong growth through our branch network as well. You know, I think the thing about the breakup campaign obviously gets a lot of attention about the advertising campaign that we launched on Valentine's Day, but we started this, in March 2009, and I think what we've seen is just a consistent building story. We were the first bank to cut exception fees, in fact the only bank to cut them, first bank to cut and only bank to cut account fees, first bank to deal with credit card reform, and so a range of things we've been doing.
Must be an expensive strategy though. Is it sustainable?
We certainly think it is sustainable. I mean, you've got to look at the performance, the underlying performance of the business bank, of the personal bank was strong. We think customers do respond to those sort of deals, and we're comfortable with the strategy, and we think it's sustainable.
Now, I've got to talk to you about IT, of course. Boy, what about the timing with Westpac having problems with its FPOS today? That must have taken the heat off a little bit.
Well, I mean, the reality is that all banks around the world are dealing with big legacy IT issues. In many cases, the core applications are put in some cases 40 years ago, when all you had was a couple of products in a branch. What we've all added over the years is ATMs and mobiles and kiosks and iPads and internets and hundreds more products. All that's built complexity into the system. Now, what we recognised 2 years ago was we had to face into the replacement. The replacement is complex, it takes time and it takes money. You
did say today that your customers realise that things happen, but as NAB flies its helicopters around the other buildings of the other big banks with banners saying you're dumped, you can't actually pay out the salaries. Isn't reliability absolutely fundamental in retail banking?
Reliability is very important, but also what you've got to have from customers, what you've got to do for customers is when you have an issue, you've got to deal to it. What you've got to do is you've got to make sure that you communicate constantly with them, which is what we did. We made ourselves extremely available, let them know what was going on. You've got to make branches open, you've got to have emergency cash, you've got to do a whole range of things. Now, what we've done is actually improved our reliability substantially. Customer events are down 60% on 2 years ago. Now, that doesn't excuse the more high-profile events we've had. We've done a lot to improve reliability, and when we do have an event, as unfortunate as it is, we make sure we respond as quickly and as professionally as we can.
Moving to bad debts, NAB's bad debt provisions only fell about 19.7%. If you compare that to Westpac's 47% reduction this week, is this a different approach? Is NAB being much more conservative here?
Well, I really can't sort of comment on what other banks might be doing. The reality is that, we are not taking out provisions in terms of our management or economic overlays. We don't think that's appropriate at this point in time. And, there is obviously a slight improvement in credit scores, which is a driver of collective provision, so we should see some reduction in that going forward. But it's really a function of the fact we're a large business bank, and therefore it will take time for some of the bad debts to unwind.
Can I ask you about SGA, specialised group assets in particular? Very much exposure in the UK and Europe. Where is this headed? Because the outlook for the UK is really lousy later this year.
Well, it is, but the outlook is certainly better than it was a couple of years ago. And that's why you've seen the specialised group assets portfolio sort of swing from loss to profit. This is not a part of the business we're seeking to grow. When I took over, we said this is a group of assets that we don't want as part of the portfolio, and we'll run them down in an orderly fashion, and we've started to do that. We accelerated the run-off, as we noted today, on a couple of the SCDO parts of the portfolio. But SGA will eventually disappear. Yes, the outlook for the UK is poor, but it's a lot better than it was when we started this portfolio a couple of years ago.
We've got the banking inquiry report coming down tomorrow. Seems to be an expectation that there'll be very little in it to upset big banks like yourself.
Well, look, I don't know. All I know is that what we've done is we've been dealing with issues. In many cases, we've been the only bank to deal with some of the areas that cause most concern to consumers, such as fees. So we see that we've got a very competitive position, and we've probably got the most or the least to lose in terms of impact from any of the regulatory changes that are coming through those sort of inquiries.
And Cameron Clyne, where do you sit on the carbon tax? We don't have headlines on this show.
Well, no, I mean, I'm a participant in the government's business roundtable. I'm the only bank participant in that. And I think the right place to have the debate is inside those forums. I think there's too much debate going on in the public. We don't have detail. That's what you have a consultative process for. And I'm going to have my comments and my positions done inside the room and not through the media.
Do you think the consultations are going well, though?
There's discussions. There's going to be differences of opinion, but you've got a framework, and as long as you've got discussions going on, that's a good thing.
Cameron Clyne, a very good result today. Thank you so much for joining the program.
Thank you, Tiggy.